Coming up on this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast.
And it's a simple business, but it ain't easy. And it's a true statement. What I love about it is we are not calling on one vertical, one industry, one type of person. We have a very broad swath of what we can do. We try to reinvent yourself, in different ways. Everything you do by habit, challenge it and looking at it and saying, okay, is this the best way I should be doing it?
Welcome to the Elite Recruiter Podcast with your host, Benjamin Mena, where we focus on what it takes to win in the recruiting game. We cover it all from sales, marketing, mindset, money, leadership, and placements.
I am so excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast because as a firm owner, I've seen two types of firm owners. The ones the second they have the team, they will just want to hang it up and just go sit on the beach. But then there are those that become the standard bearers. They become the examples. They become the type of person that they want the rest of the team to be like. And I am so excited to have David here to part of this podcast because he is the standard bearer of his organization. When I talk about standard bearer, over $20 million in placements, averaging $750,000 a year in placement fees with years over 1 million. He has a team of 60 people. He could choose to just hang out, but no, he's actually being the standard bearer because of that. He knows by his example, other people can do the same. Other people can live their dreams. Other people can hit their goals. So I'm so excited to have David. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here.
So real quick 30 seconds, self-introduction about yourself before we get rocking and rolling.
Absolutely, Mark. I grew up on the other side of the pond, actually in Canada. I've been here now for, 30 years, but I kind of grew up in family. We've all migrated to the U.S. We're all in Michigan here, Detroit, Michigan area, Clarkston to be exact, right up the road. That's where we are now. And married, 5 kids, great wife that's at home, managing the household while I get to do this great business. And 4 grown kids, one that's just finishing high school. So we're a big sports family and lots of fun. All immediate families, all in Michigan here. So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you guys are Michigan, and I've seen you talk about it, big hockey player too, right?
I love the game of hockey. Yeah, for sure. And I love about the game. Still play it twice a week. And now I've been here long enough. I get to cheer for U.S. and Canada. Right? And the nation's got it. It was fun. So,
then you must have loved the game recently too.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, I was glued to it. Yes. So.
All right, you've been in the business for a while. So let's take a step back. How did you even end up in this wonderful world of recruiting?
Well, I stumbled into it. Let me tell you. So I grew up in a household where I had a mom that was just an absolute workhorse. So I learned a lot from her. And my dad had a vision. He always taught me about entrepreneurship. Always taught me about the value of starting your own business, having your own business, the concept of self-employment. I grew up in the lawn care landscaping business at age 16. I was cutting grass and it built up a company, sold it. I had 200 plus customers up in Toronto. And so I really learned entrepreneurship and the value of hard work and getting your hands dirty every day. And it was just that from kind of learning that, selling that, and always having the vision. I wanted to get into sales. I knew I wanted to my income and my life to be determined on what I did. So long story short, wanted to get into sales, wanted to drive something, looked into real estate, looked into different options. But here's a business you can drive by the phone. And I'm like, I can control my destiny. So anyway, still wanted to a recruiter to find a job. And next thing you know, he turns the tables on me and asks me if I want to be a recruiter. So next thing you know, here I am 30 years later in the biz. So that's kind of a long story short. So.
It's amazing how just one decision or meeting one person can have a 30-year career impact on a person.
Absolutely. I think I remember seeing his paycheck and it was, it had to be July or August. And he had already, this is again, 30 years ago, he had made $80,000 or $90,000 by August. I'm like, that's just, for my humble beginnings where I began, that was a lot of money. I'm like, how does, and you get to talk to people all day on the phone. I'm like, this is something I got to explore. I got to get further into. So anyway, yes, that's true.
I want to kind of get into how you got your firm started, all that stuff. But I want to talk about the standard bearer. And I know we're going to come back to that later. As a firm, you have co-founders, but you decided that your role was the standard bearer. Why is that?
It's a great question. Yeah. So essentially, I look at myself and my 2 business partners who are fantastic at what they do as well. It's my natural talent. I think that's leading by example, being in the trenches, being the guy that's doing the push-ups every day. That was my value proposition to the firm, along with being the Rainmaker and bringing people into the fold was my strength. And so I think it sort of was a default. That's where I found my success for the first 16 years. working for a big Fortune 500 company called Spherion. And so I'm like, I learned from that angle. So I'm like, that was the natural evolution when we started the firm 16 years ago to carry on that role, which is really an important one.
Okay. And let's jump back in the Spherion days. Like, you were doing great at Spherion. Why did you decide to make the jump with some buddies of yours?
So we're going back to the 2008, 2009 timeframe. Obviously, the recession had hit, the mortgage crisis, all kinds of crazy stuff was going on. And I remember people asking, "You're crazy. You're going to start your own business." And anyway, it was a time period where there was a natural lull. My partner, Doug, was looking at things and realizing that the market was changing. His ability to keep his group together was changing. So it was a natural evolution to let's take the best systems, the greatest things about our old company, you dismiss the ones that aren't good and bring them over. So we started, with 3 people in a stone house back online. That's how it all kind of got going.
How long did it take for you guys to start staffing up?
It didn't take long. I mean, the vision was to get our lives back and then start to build from there. But it was probably, a couple months. So we started tapping the shoulders of folks we knew that were in the business and looking at young folks coming up to graduate college, looking at how they could add value. And so, it wasn't long. We were up to 8 to 10 people by the end of year 1. So it was a real quick ramp up for sure.
When you guys, actually, let me take a few steps back in this. Did you guys all get together, all 3 of you guys, we're going to go start a company? Or was it were you guys forced into it?
Doug was the catalyst. Our founder was the catalyst to really identify that, hey, this wasn't working for him. So it's this ain't working. We explored a couple options to maybe join forces with a different firm. And it made the most sense to unplug back in 2009 and start to map the strategy to do movement. So it was really the market. I think all our billings were down. We were facing a mortgage crisis and everything was happening. So it's if we're going to unplug, now's the time to do it when everything's kind of naturally low. And his ability, I think, he was having to close offices. And so, I think he was worried about, what's going to happen to our office as an example. And am I going to lose big producers? So I was his top producer for pretty much every one of those years. So I think he had some concern. I'm going to lose, Dave, I might lose some other key people. And now I'm going to have to rebuild anyway. Let's rebuild on it with our own brick and mortar and do this. So it was a ballsy move, I'd say, at that time in life, with the market the way it was, and you're starting something from scratch, but we're glad we did it.
And you guys are now have, 60 recruiters across 5 different cities?
Well, yes, 5 across, and we have some remote folks too that are out, some is a group, there's one in Vegas, one in not Vegas, but Vegas was one for a while, but Phoenix, Arizona, and we've got some affiliates around. But yeah, for the most part, most of our group is in brick and mortar office. We've got a spread out group across the country. The main hubs are, Detroit area. We got 2 offices in Detroit area, Royal Oak and Clarkston, one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, west side of Michigan, Charleston, South Carolina, and then Sarasota is our latest office. We opened up in 2024.
Okay, so you guys started in Michigan. How did you guys start growing these additional offices in other places, in other cities?
Yeah, and it was really an organic play. So it wasn't something where let's grow out of ambition, we want to be this big. It was really let's give opportunity for the people we have and let's fill the jobs. So it was we were developing this business, and organically it kind of grew to, we needing more people. So it was very much a pure organic play. We didn't buy anyone out. And there's a couple, you call them acquisitions along the way, where to call them a tuck-in acquisition, where we looked at people with a book of business and sort of brought them into the fold. A couple folks in Traverse City and what have you that had been in the business. But for the most part, it was, let's go find great people in recruiting. Let's go find great salespeople that can do this business. Let's find great, let's call it college kids. We start looking at college kids and they're, let's say juniors, sophomore, junior, and then look at those high potential people and then go to colleges and recruit people and train them the business from the ground up. So a lot of that type of organic play. And it just, it's every year there's a draft class of movement folks coming. And unfortunately, you say goodbye to people too. So in this business, as we know, is a very tough business. So not everyone's able to stick with it and do it. So it's kind of pluses and minuses each year that sort of gets us to that 60 number we're at today.
Okay, so you said draft class. You guys actually look at it as a draft?
We really, it's kind of that's our phraseology, right? But it's every year we're always scouting for talent. That's not hey, let's hire this year. When the market dips, we're always hiring. We're always looking for those A players. I think that's what really allowed us to soar during COVID, where we were bullish during COVID and knowing that everything's going to come back, right? We were going through this time phase where, we had a year or two or how long, we didn't know how long, right? That everyone was retrenching, closing offices. Our competitors were closing offices. We believed in the culture of being in the office as best we can, as soon as the pandemic was over, and it's just let's go. And so draft class, you're right. So it's every year is a draft class. We do trainings, we do training groups. so that we can get, and it's really fun to go back and look at, draft class and see, you predict in your mind who's going to be the top biller, who's going to stick long-term, who's not. And so it's kind of fun to go back in previous years and look at how that pans out. But so, and the training together really develops a bond between those people that are training together, and you hope that they're all with you for a lifetime.
Okay. And one of the things that actually just kind of blew my mind, and we were chatting about this offline, is 70% of the placements that you guys have, and like we're already looking at like $20 million a year of placements, is split deals across the organization.
Correct. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that's unique, isn't it? I mean, that's our special sauce. Is we go to a client when we get new business, our ability to sell the client, and we're going to cover job. We can cover jobs in 5 to 7 days. We've got the job covered. We could have 3 to 5 really good candidates in play. So I think it's having 60 sets of eyes and ears on a roll. Doesn't mean all 60 people are working that job, of course, but we're very much team play. So jobs get announced, deals get announced, and we're kind of a nomadic group. We've got people that are kind of niched in certain areas in some cases, but many of us are generalists where we're really good at recruiting and headhunting engineers or manufacturing folks or salespeople, and we do the research, we go find the people. So it's a unique model that really works.
And you guys are all like direct placement too, right?
Yeah, I'd say about 80% direct placement. We do contract as well. So we've got a whole book of business there as well. But I feel like our business, largely perm placement and retainer contingency both, for sure.
And this is going to go back to a conversation. This is one of the reasons why like I actually love in-person events. Got the chance to meet you at a Pinnacle Society meeting. You got the presentations and all the teaching that happens, but the real secret sauce is the conversations that happen after the day is done at a restaurant or at a bar. And you're breaking down about like how you guys grow your people and grow your team. When somebody comes into your organization, like they start off as what typically?
So there's different models. If someone's coming in, if they're new to the recruiting business, they come in as a headhunter support model where they're paid a base salary, they're trued up on commission each quarter, the bonuses each quarter. We learn the business the right way. We're teaching them the business. They're being mentored with other headhunters around them to really learn the right way, right? So it's that typically, if there's someone's coming in full desk, they'll come in like they've already had recruiting experience, or they could be a senior salesperson that's got that moxie, that swagger. They've been in our type of sales, maybe not that's headhunting sales or recruiting sales, but that person has a little maturity in their background and understanding the business. So we'll bring them in full desk right away. But it's kind of that process of teaching, training, and mentoring to bring them in.
Awesome. And you guys like also have figured out how to make the culture work, which is hard. One of the things that a lot of people make the mistake of when you're staffing up and growing and scaling an organization is like the way that I do things, the way that I lead is just the way that it works. But in the people business, dealing with the two-sided sales of people, how did you guys really start developing a culture that created a lot of like high billers and consistent billers, that people that just keep on growing? And you guys have people that stick with you guys.
For sure. When we hire someone, we want them to be with us for a lifetime, but we hire people with that retention. There's a great Peter Drucker expression. It's culture eats strategy for breakfast. It is essentially saying that culture is everything. And it really is. If you build your business around culture and treating people right and having the right systems and the right interplay of people, it all sort of takes care of itself. And we don't manage the business with some master strategy of, again, we want to be in this market or we're going after this vertical. It may be a byproduct. Really, our mission statement is so darn simple. To hire people that are dedicating their lives to this business. We want them on the team and bring them in the fold and then grow that way. But culture is huge. There's so many ways. There's great examples in our company of how we do that. And there's so many interactive events, and we're big on, cornhole tournaments and incentive trips and, Wednesday breakfast and all kinds of stuff that we do to try to make people feel part of something bigger. I mean, this is a tough business, right? It's a simple business, but it ain't easy. And so anything you could do to have amenities and office space and the coolness factor to take the business off the charts where people want to come in and they want to be part of something.
And you guys have what was it, 2 incentive trips a year, correct?
We have one big incentive trip a year. We have a big one coming up this fall. It's a destination trip and everyone can make it. It's a number you got to hit, a billing number from January to July. We want everyone to go. It's not like the top 10% make it. And that was one of the flaws in our old company, right? The top 10%, I remember billing $500K one year. I didn't make the trip because I wasn't at the top 10%, So in spouses come. Our old company spouses didn't come. That was absolutely imperative that plus ones could come to these trips. And now they're the biggest cheerleaders at home. encouraging employee, just come on, you got to cracking the whip at home to make sure that they hit the numbers so they can go. So these are big tricks. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars we invest. We learned a statistic recently that for every dollar you spend on these trips, it comes back to you 12-fold in terms of productivity. And that's a study that was done from our incentive group that does our trips, which is really, to me, that blows my mind. So it's just in
12x.
A 12x factor. 12x factor. Yeah. It's a big deal. It was shocking. I didn't realize it was that much, but it's because and I think what I found from most companies, they look at these trips or these massive investments as costs, right? They look at it as, hey, this is costing us money versus what's the impact and what's the stick factor of people year in, year out. So it's remarkable. We don't hold anything back. These are 5-star trips. And the problem, you want everyone to partake. You wish everyone had a chance to be there because when they're there, they buy in. They don't want to miss one. I remember my first trip I went to our old company. Once I made it, I wanted to be everyone.
You've created a culture that like pulls other people up.
Yeah, for sure. We look at it as kind of an inverted pyramid. You've got the 3 owners and principals of the firm. You've got the management group that manages each office. We have someone managing each office who's also a working manager. Everything's meant to feed the roof, feed the head owners. And it's like each person in the firm's a P&L. They're an individual business. We look at them as a self-employed. Again, they're W-2 employees and they get full benefits. They get all the goodies that you get with a company, but they are their own P&L and their own business. And we encourage them to think of their business that way. They're not an employee. So it's that. So it's what's the greatest things we can do to feed that group? And whether it's the benefits, the incentives, the trips, all the extra stuff. And so when you got a flat organization like that with not a ton of people overhead, you can do those kind of things and create a special environment for sure.
Awesome. And then that kind of like goes back into a little bit about you. Like day in and day out, or I should say year in and year out, you've been a consistent big biller, averaging $750K per year. Why did you decide to, take the role and keep on recruiting and keep on hammering it out, where I feel like you can probably easily take on a different role at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the role there's more time and attention and eyes on bringing people in the firm and trying to keep an eye on them. But again, I don't have a formal management responsibility in the firm, but I certainly lead by example kind of management responsibility. Let's call it that. You're right. Yeah, there's no question that the billings of the firm, it's really paramount versus what I can do at my desk level. But there's no question. I think being a standard bearer and being that person, there's a ripple effect, I think, for other people. And I want people to beat me. So it's a good, healthy competition.
Do people actually beat you?
There's been a few years, yeah, I relish it. And it's a great thing. And so it's good for the company for sure. So
is there a Beat David award?
I hear rumblings when we do the meetings and stuff like that people are on my tail, and I love to hear it. It's good. It's really good. So,
but taking a few steps back, what does this consistency and work ethic actually look like? You're in a day out for you, or week in and week out?
I'm super consistent with my day. It's a very structured event. I mean, there's some give and take, but I can't pay someone to do your push-ups in this business. You're not plugged in working 7 days a week, but you're plugged in 7 days a week. Your eyes and ears, the donuts got to get made 7 days a week. You've got calls to make, you got interviews to prep. I think it's managing your life and integrating it such where there's work-life balance it's all combined, right? So I joke all the places I've closed deals, whether it's been at Disney World or many at the hockey rinks before, many at the schools performances, everywhere you can imagine. I've closed or to move the interview process forward. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
You just said a line a few seconds ago, you can't pay somebody to do your push-ups.
Correct.
And I feel like we see that a lot in the recruiting space of somebody wishing you could pay somebody else to do your push-ups. But how did you come about that line? Where did that even come from? And why did you, I've heard you say that multiple times.
Yeah, I think it was grained into me or drilled into me when I was a kid. And just, I saw my mom, how hard she worked, and she was just a really great example of that. So I think it's just in relishing it and feeling good about that. I feel great about a day when I've accomplished something and I've put my absolute 110% into the day. So I think that the push-up thing it's an analogy of working out, right? If you want to make it to the big leagues or whatever you're doing, you can't play pro by, you can't pay someone to do push-ups for you, right? You got to do them yourself, and you got to live by example. And so I think and especially I think as the tools, we've had these onslaught of tools come at us. CRMs and LinkedIn's Recruiter and Zoom and all the AI tools that are just coming like a tsunami towards us. And those are all great, right? They're great. How do we take advantage of those and bring them into our day? But I think at the end of the day, it's applying yourself and being plugged in and being, applying yourself. This is the toughest, let's call it $60,000-$70,000 a year business in the world. And it's the easiest $500,000 a year job in the world. Someone told me that once, and it's really reigns true.
That is so true.
And so what's the $500,000 person doing differently than the folks that are scraping by? And they're all good people. Let's call them all good people. But what are the little slight things they're doing? The little things they're doing. Maybe they're doing a few more reps of push-ups a day or whatever it may be. They're looking at their business. It's not all about hard work, but it's looking at how do I apply this tool or that tool and bring new things under their desk and make their desk thrive, right? Make it interesting. Whether it's attacking BD business development a different way, or looking at how they go about the candidate experience, or are they visiting their clients? Or I think it's important to continue to reinvent how you do things. And that's another thing that has made it interesting for me.
Looking at you're definitely the $750K plus biller constantly. Like, I feel like this might be like just normal you're used to it. This is how you operate. But you look at other people because you're in Pinnacle, you talk to other recruiters, you see the recruiters on your team. What the hell are you doing different than compared to that $70K biller that has the hardest recruiting job in the world?
Yeah, that's good. Back to the motivation piece. It's the thrill of the deal still excites me. Closing a deal, getting a 30K, 40K, whatever it might be, 20K, 10K, getting those deals, it's the thrill, it's the high of the placement. I think that's still pleasing that client, that hard to fill job. So what am I doing? I look at myself as very consistent. My numbers, I look across the board on the metrics, the daily metrics, the phone time. If I'm not, the outputs aren't right on the right side of the ledger, then something on the left side of the ledger, we call it the metrics, right? The phone time, the presentations, the emails sent. We were, as a company, very KPI metric driven. We looked at all those things. They're not measured with a stick and a hammer, but it's more of a carrot. Like, hey, this is where you could be if you did this. Let's diagnose why the billings aren't there. There's probably something along the line, whether it's you not write enough jobs, you're not sending enough candidates out on presentations, their phone time sucks, it's terrible. And that door or whatever. I think I'm very, very focused on that. And I bring it every day. I think this is something I see it a lot, right? Someone has a great month. They're on top of the world. They bill 100K or something like that, and they take the next month off. So I think it's kind of keeping that activity always sort of consistent. And I think that's what has enabled me to, oftentimes I don't know what I build at the end of the month. I just know there's a lot of good stuff happening. A lot of activity.
So what are you tracking then? If there are months that you have no clue what you build, what are you actually tracking?
It's very well tracked. Our CRM tracks it. We do monthly meetings where it's announced to our whole group, and we celebrate our deals. And so, I do know my subconscious mind, but it's not like I'm thinking about it. Oftentimes we do the monthly meeting at the end. I'm like, oh, that's what I built. Okay. It could be a bandwidth of 70 to 120. It could be part of it's based on when the start dates are and those types of things. But my point I'm trying to make is this is an activity driven business. When you do the right activities, everything comes out on the right side of the ledger the right way. So that's when I'm like, I don't know necessarily what I build that nor am I paying close attention to that. But I'm looking at, am I covering all my jobs? Am I opening enough new doors? Am I working enough other people's jobs? Because I don't just work my own jobs. I'm working, other people's jobs in the firm. I'm like very, very my head on a swivel, because we've got 60 recruiters. I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of them are full desk. Meaning they're either writing, they have good jobs right now, they're working jobs, or they're attempting to get new business. So that's where the split play comes in. I want to know the combos. If I'm working an engineering role in Michigan, I want to know does someone have a similar engineering role in Michigan? So that's where the team play comes in. So
okay, so you have like 60 recruiters, and then somebody brings in a new job. Like, how do you prevent 58 of them trying to work that one position?
Yeah, that happens to some extent, but I think people are generally focused on their own book of business and growing that book of business. But when you try to manage that as a permanent meetings, right, to make sure that when you sign up for a job, we don't have 10 people sign up for the same job. That's not well organized business. But a lot of times you generally have 2 to 3 people in the firm that are dialed in. They have call lists. They're actively working those jobs, and then there's 47, 50, 55, whatever other people that know about the job. So they may have a flyer for you. They may have just talked to a candidate last week that's perfect for that role. So it's kind of organized chaos. But at the same time, we're so entrepreneurial that there's no borders, no boundaries. And that's what makes us special. And our old environment was like, you will work accounting finance. You will stay in this geography. This is the box you're going to work in. And so if it's good business and it is good gross profit and it makes sense, then yeah, go work it. Go attack that, bring that in, and let's fill it.
I remember those days. Like, yeah, we're cutting your territory a little more. So the business that you had over there, we now have to give it to another office because you're special.
Exactly. You know it.
I want to go back to this. Like, go back to the KPIs. Like, you guys, everything's measured from your guys' ATS, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
What ATS are you guys using?
We're using Bullhorn.
Okay. When you look at the metrics and the KPIs that you measure, like with all yours being tracked, can the rest of the organization see like some of your stuff?
Absolutely. Everyone sees. So that's a beauty too, is the transparency across the firm. And everyone in the firm knows what everybody's making and what we build. And it's on a board and it's announced. We announce our deals every week. We announce, hey, so-and-so had 10 interviews this last week. Great. What are you doing? Who are you getting them with? What's the clients? And so it's absolutely, it's a learning moment for the other group to say, hey, this is hot. I need to jump on this bandwagon or whatever. So it's very transparent. So the CRM, it tracks all that. And our sort of our minimum standard is we've coined this a long time ago. I think it's a low standard, but it's 10-5-2. So 10 hours of phone time a week. That means 10 hours of connect time. And that's amazingly tougher to kid than you think, because we only look at what you're using with Ring Central, right, or a phone app. So we're using outside of that, and 5 presentations a week and 2 interviews, either on-site or virtual interviews. So those are the things we're measuring across the firm. And we look at that as kind of the standard. If you're not hitting the minimum 150K benchmark that we set for everybody, then we want to see 10-5-2. Like, show us that. Because we know if you hit 10-5-2, you're going to hit the other numbers. In my opinion, that's like, make it 12, make it 7-4, or whatever. Like, try to beat that. But 10-5-2 is kind of where we looked years ago as kind of a good benchmark.
Did you guys figure that out by looking at all the data, or was that just like something that you guys like, you know what, we're going to make it 10-5-2 is the magic number to be successful here?
Yeah, we kind of we looked at where our successful people were and what their averages were, I think, years ago. We just haven't really updated it. So it's kind of kept consistent over the years. What's challenging now is because now you have all these other, tools. You've got email, you've got text. So we track text. Do you know how many texts you send? So we look at all that data, but I think there's been a lot more in that bucket, the email bucket, the text bucket, as the phone is kind of, people wean themselves off the phone, and the phone couldn't be more important. It's where business is done. Things happen when people are on the phone.
So I've been talking with a lot of people, and the secret sauce right now, it has actually been the phone. But how do you convince like some of your team members that like the phone is now the secret weapon?
Yeah. I think that's where modeling that behavior. I grew up in the time frame where the phone was everything, right? The phone was king. Actually, 4 hours or 5 hours of phone time was good, not 2.5 or 3 or 1.5 or 30 minutes. We see it all over the map. So I think it's modeling that and not allowing these other great tools to sort of cannibalize the phone, right? So just, and little tricks I'll do is if I get a text, I'll call the person back, It's just a little trick, right? Or, and everything evolves a phone call. If I can't catch them on the phone, I'll text them as a backup. And it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge with this day and age and the generation we're in now who've grown up with texting. And so it's an age-old thing. But I think modeling it is probably the biggest thing. We had stuff we could learn from, the texting aspect. It's an important aspect of the business, too.
Once again, you being the model, like you setting the standard, you wanting every single recruiter on your team to actually beat you, but still you hold yourself to these high standards. I mean, we're in recruiting. There's months that are just absolute shit in hell. How do you stay consistent through those to still have that consistent billing year after year after year that's like exceptional?
Yeah. I guess when you say shit, my last week was like that. 6 different situations where, 4 offers that fell apart and 2 deals were done last month, and the candidates were supposed to start in 2 weeks, and they fell off for all kinds of reasons, right? One was a failed drug screen. One was a rescinded offer because of a business pullback. You know the story, Ben. This happens all the time, right? So you shovel enough shit, you're going to find a pony somewhere, right? But yeah, it's part of the business. There's so much greatness and so much output. You can make so much money in this business and have 1 million things fall off here. That's where numbers, I think, insulating your business with activity, where you sort of stomach that. I think the quicker you can get over those types of turndowns and bad situations, the better. And the more experience, the more gray hair you have, I think the better you get with it. But one thing I like to do is when I've had a bad week or a bad day, we do our Monday morning meetings with our group, all 60 of us on teams. We're all together, either physically in an office or on virtual, and we announce all our placements. Every single placement start gets announced. and there's a clap for that person. And we give, a little 10-second pitch and the client, the future of that client. And to me, I'm like, all this bad stuff happened. But you know what? There's 15 placements that were made this week across the firm. So there's money being made somewhere. And I think that's what was fun about me being part of Pinnacle too, is just, stretching myself beyond just 4 walls of 60 people and seeing that there's people that are successful in all kinds of different spaces in this business.
Let's talk about that. Like, you joined Pinnacle. Like, why did you decide to join the Pinnacle Society?
2 things. I wanted to find a way to give back and offer time. And it hasn't quite happened yet. I've been to a few the annual meetings, and I look forward to, as the future unfolds, to getting to know more people and offering more. But I felt I needed this stretch. I need to get better. I think when you look and you talk to professionals across the country, across the world that are doing this business in different verticals and different avenues and using different tools, to me, I want to bring as many best practices as I can back to movement. So that's really why, is to become better myself. How can I stretch, right?
What are some of the things that you actually pulled away from the Pinnacle members and Pinnacle Society and has actually implemented in a team of 60 recruiters?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work in progress. I mean, I'm at a desk level trying to bring AI more into my desk. So ChatGPT, looking at all different aspects of how I can save time, create more. So we're doing a lot. I'm personally doing a lot more of that. It's also been a reassurance for me going to these meetings that we're doing a lot of things right. And that's been also maybe a validation process. We've been very, very good. And thanks to, my 2 other business partners, Doug and Chris and everything, but as well for just creating systems that really work. We run our business by, you can set a watch to it, of how things work and the consistency of how we look at everything from comp plans to benefits to tools and how we roll things out, how we manage our people. It's very, very transparent, very, very professionally run. And I think it's many, many steps up from where we were at a Fortune 500 company, how they rolled things out. So it's been really fun to take best practices. And I think that's where I think I can offer a lot to move to the Pinnacle, is just looking at how we've done certain things and how we rolled things out. I get pinged a lot by Pinnacle people too, just asking me, hey, what's your comp plan? How do you guys compensate? How have you scaled? So just try to tie that in.
I do remember that. I was just kind of like just sitting with my glass of wine over the corner, and you were just getting peppered by these $1 million+ billers for like a good 40 minutes of like everything that you guys are doing at Movement. Like this, like, what about this? What about this? What about this? How do you do this? How do you do that? I was just like,
yeah. I'm super proud of where we are and what we've been able to accomplish in this crazy, crazy business where we've got 60 heads that can all decide not to show up tomorrow and to say, I'm packing it in. That's good. Back to your culture question, how important that is, the stick factor of having people really glued into this business and want to do it here. And to answer your question, then I think there's a lot I can personally offer to Pinnacle by getting a lot of experiences in what we've done and how we've done things. And what I found, there's a lot of fear about taking steps like that, hiring people. And we were bullish from day one. We've learned a lot. We've made mistakes along the way too, but we've gotten pretty good at hiring and looking for the right types of people. But if there's something we could bottle up and sell it, we'd be millionaires. But it's so hard to find the right people, right, to do this business. It's a simple business, but it ain't easy, right?
that is true. And recruiters sometimes are the worst at recruiting their own team.
Shouldn't be that way, right?
We're great at helping all our other clients. When it's us, we're like, what?
Yeah.
Well, anyways. So before we go to the quick fire questions, I actually have one quick question about something that you mentioned. And you said that like you're the Rainmaker.
Yeah.
And you're a bit of a Rainmaker setup. For those that are listening, what does that actually mean?
Well, it really means I'm looking to bring as many clients in, and I manage at any given time with probably 8 different clients. So that's a pretty good swath. You got your A's and your B's. You got some that you're really hot with, and some that are kind of maybe fractional, where you're doing maybe a deal or two, and some that are just future there to build something. So it's kind of I look at like managing a portfolio of stocks. You've got your really active ones that are just soaring, and you're probably giving your 80-20 to those ones, and you're maybe trying to nurture these ones, and you're maybe trying to exit some of them too. That's where I'm talking the Rainmaker, where I'm trying to bring as many people into my desk and have people feed off of that and build their desk off of it, and hopefully catch fire where they can turn around and be a Rainmaker themselves. And I'm not the only Rainmaker, by the way. We've got several that have multiple clients, but mine tend to be maybe more, and maybe I can always do a better job of penetrating those clients more and getting my cooks into more of their business. But we've got some fantastic folks here, and that it all begins and ends with the people. We've got some fantastic ones that have really done that, and we're forever grateful, because if it wasn't for their desk, there wouldn't be many, many recruiters underneath them feeding off of that.
Love that. Well, jumping over to quick fire questions, and it don't need to be quick answers. And I'm sure this is advice that you give constantly. What advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's just getting started? This is their first year, 2025 recruiting period.
First thing I would tell them is go pro right now. Go pro right away. Don't have a plan B. I think when you have a plan B, or you're like, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go over here and do this. I think you need to have your blinders on it and absolutely immerse yourself into the business and commit to the business and learn it. So I think what happens is we get a lot of resistance sometimes where people aren't listening, right? Or coming in, they think they got their own ideas. We've been doing this for 30 years. And yes, maybe they will have some ideas they can bring with them. And so those are a couple of surefire things. And I think the other one is to plan your own strengths. No one's going to be exactly like me. They may be better, but they may be themselves in a different way. We've got some folks in our firm that are just absolutely fantastic account managers, where they just are able to take account and it becomes a multi-million-dollar account, and that account lasts for years upon end. They do a wonderful job of nurturing those C-level relationships. And I'm probably more of the grind it out, bring new clients into the fold, try to grow them. But there's a lot. So just be yourself, right? Not everyone has perhaps the tenacity, or they don't view the business the way I do. There's the numbers game aspect of it. So, hey, build deeper relationships, or become more niched. I try to be niche in some areas. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but.
Same question, but for somebody that's been around the block 5, 10, 25 years, like what advice would you be giving to them?
I would say try to reinvent yourself, in different ways. Everything you do by habit, challenge it and looking at it and saying, okay, is this the best way I should be doing it? Looking around at the people around you, how they're doing it. Whenever things get dull, I'll go visit a client. I'll just get out. I'm doing that today. I'm going to go see someone. 2:00 today. I'm like, yeah, I don't have to do that. We've already got several interviews set. Things are rolling with this client, but I'm like, I want to walk their shop floor. I want to see the plant. The president's going to be, I'm going to be able to shake hands with the president. I'm going to be able to see HR, build that relationship. Nothing bad happens when you visit a client and you get out there and change it up. Take a different way to work. Take a different, direction. Maybe go to a conference, shake things up. Those can keep us out of a rut, right? Maybe go do something totally different. Go play hockey. For me, it's hockey, right? Go play hockey lunch and just clear my head. So it's just those little things. Have fun with the business and just look at it. Look at how how you're doing it.
What do you think that's one leadership principle that has actually helped you?
I would say accountability and ownership. And we try to ingrain that with our folks from day one. This is your business. This is your business, not our business. We're here to facilitate. We've got the shingle on the roof. We're going to give you the facade for your business, but you are the business. So this is your P&L. So I think that accountability and ownership and doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, and do it with the style and the communication you're going to do it. So just owning the business. I think that's the number one thing, and having the ownership mentality.
Has there been a book that's had a huge impact on your career?
Yeah, I'm a big book guy. Well, podcasts more so, but there's one it's in the back right here, but 10X is easier than 2X. I think I heard on another podcast, the Scott Love podcast. Literally, I was on Amazon buying it 5 seconds later, and it's a great book. It's fantastic. Anyway, it goes into, it's not so much working harder. It's how do you work smarter? How do you maybe get rid of some of the stuff, getting rid of the bottom 20% of what you're doing, or even getting rid of about 80%, looking at the top 20% of what you're doing, and just how do you get better and better and better at that? So that's been a mind shift kind of book.
Okay. And you've been in this game for a bit, and you've seen the industry change. You've seen it evolve. Like in 2025, what is actually working for business development right now?
So it's, I do a lot of add-on questions. So I'm continuing I never go into working at someone else's job or even working my job with the mindset, I'm only going to fill a job for this client. I'm always asking add-on questions. So every recruiting call is gold. So it's simple things like, are they going to be a fit for this job? I'm recruiting now. That's one of the first key questions. If they're not interested, who do they know? Or how could I expand that? Or how could I keep that person in mind for future roles? I have a favorite question that I ask everyone. I say, how's business? It's the most basic question in the world, but it's gold because it's an open-ended question. Everyone can answer it. And with the first sentence they say gives me a strong clue where I'm going with the call. And usually it's one of two things. Oh, we're the tent's folding down, or we're this or that. Or it's the opposite. Oh, man, we can't keep up. We are so busy. We have a backlogged on orders. We got this going, that going. So the antennas go up. I mean, they're going to have needs. And then I like to ask them, how did you find your job? How did you land at ABC company? Did you land by a recruiter, or did you find it on your own or through a recruiter? I always like to know that, because if they find it through a recruiter, there's a good chance that's another lead, right? So we're using LinkedIn Recruiter. We use a lot of tools, right? Zoom Info and a lot of different things. But there's nothing that replaces that repetition of the phone, building those relationships with candidates you're talking to and getting leads that way. And asking for referrals. So once you're doing business in a space, building that relationship with them, what other companies are doing well in your space that maybe there could be an opportunity for. So it's firing on all cylinders.
And, looking at your success, and you've been consistently successful, pull apart a few layers, like what are some of the reasons that you can contribute the success that you've had to?
I think it's the structure, being very, very structured about my day, my time. So it's like when I get up, I'm up early at 6 a.m., get back to my daughter to work, and I'm at my desk, between 7:30 and 8:30, depending on the day, every day. Saturday, Sunday morning, I'm generally doing something with my work, with my recruiting in the morning, a couple hours in the morning, and then I put it aside for the day. So it's consistency and structure. To me, it's paramount.
Structured and consistent. Let's go back in time. Let's look at the days when you started at, your recruiting career. If you had the chance with everything that you know now to go back in time and have that conversation with yourself, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
Do you know what I would do? I think back then I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was just kind of just like a bull in a china shop working hard. And that's all great. That was key. But I think the number one thing, I'd have more swagger from day one. And I think there's a tendency, I think when I got into business, you sort of look up to those plant managers and those, VPs and those C-level people you would speak to or interact with. You'd be looking, not that you shouldn't respect everyone you talk to, but you'd look up to them to the point where they're here and I'm here. And I think that's a big factor. There would be no delay in the swagger. And I think people that come in our business, I see early 20, 25-year-old somethings that do kill it, have a great year. And I'm like, what do they do differently? I think it's a swagger factor. Is calling high level. And I learned a long time ago that there's very, very, actually, there may not be no one I've ever placed that makes more money than I do. And I don't say that with a tone of ego, but it's more of we're special. What we do, the service we offer our clients is very, very meaningful. And we're not just telemarketers, right? We're moving the needle for companies and their performance. We're moving the needles for people's lives and their careers. So that money is just a benchmark, right? But I think it signifies the importance of what we do. We build something from nothing, right? Every day we create everything. We create our own economy. So we do it with the tools we have in front of us. That's one thing for sure, swagger.
Let's fast forward. I think it was like 9 years or 10 years when it was just three of you guys sitting in a room. You're a month into starting Movement. You guys are just hitting the phones, pounding it, like just talking about the vision and the future. If you had the chance to go back in time after the first month and just like sit down and give yourself advice, what actually would you tell yourself for this journey?
I would say, I think there's times along the way where you're knowing that this is a journey, right? It's just going to take time. It's a journey. It's not just about the destination, and enjoy every minute of it, which I think we did. And that's probably something that we did do. But I would say we're in this for the long haul. So don't sweat the small stuff. If you have a hire that doesn't work out, or you lose a client, or there's little pitfalls along the way, or just things that have happened. 1 year into the business, we had a client in Canada we were going over to do some work for, and we had an issue with the border at the last minute. We had to improvise, and we had a bunch of interviews set up, but they said we couldn't go across the border because we didn't have the right visa to do the work over there. So we had to improvise quickly. And just a good example, but I think just don't sweat the small stuff. This is a journey. Don't ride the highs too high or ride the lows too low. That's what's so beautiful about this recruiting biz is we create our own economy with what we do. When I look at layoffs and I look at the bad things that happen to people's lives with jobs and just cutbacks, and at the end of the day, we get to control what we do. We get to control ourselves, right?
That is true. One of the interesting things about recruiting is how the business has changed. Like, how do you stay on top of like the latest tools and trends and that kind of stuff?
I follow you, Ben. I ride your coattails. You don't know what I do. I am so plugged into stuff you're doing. I think you are, to me, one of the pioneers in this business. There's so much respect there. You know it. Sitting beside you in Atlanta and Pinnacle, I was hanging on every word you were talking about with AI. To me, I think that was so interesting, and we're all scratching our heads. How do we take these awesome tools and help us be more productive? So anyway, that's a big thing, is staying on top. I listen to the podcast. I'm a big fan of them. You know what? You got to pick your spots. Yours is great. I listen to Mark. I listen to the other ones out there. Your Rock the Year coming up. I'm going to attend that. What was the one we did just start the year one?
There's a Sales and BD Summit. Yeah.
I did that. I did the one last fall. And I go back and listen to that stuff. I buy the advanced, it's pennies on the dollar for what you get in return. So I encourage anyone listening to it, join that summit, get involved, listen to it. And that's what allows you, I think, to take your business to another level and get out of the rut of just doing, because just the business is a grind, right? And you're doing the same thing every day. If you're doing the same thing every day, you're not getting the results you want, then you got to do something different.
Well, I mean, that goes into the question, like, how else are you stretching your mind? Like, you do a lot of learning, but how else are you stretching it?
I like to do stuff totally outside of, I mean, in a men's group on Friday mornings, I like to be part of that. It's a Catholic men's group. I plug into that. I'm very involved in my kids' sports. I like to meet friends and family outside of work. I don't always talk about work, but I always stretch it. And it's, to me, the sports. I play a lot of racquetball and hockey, and those are my two outlets where it allows you to take that competitive juice you have with this and do a thing. But I think stretching my mind isn't always doing more work. It's sometimes giving your mind a break to really, truly just take a pause from this business and everything, and just maybe some quiet time.
I absolutely love that. Well, and being a part of a firm owner, being part of Pinnacle, you're always hiring. I'm sure you're getting questions from recruiters like, what about this? What about this? What about the tech tool? All these like strategic or tactical questions. Do you wish that there was a question that a recruiter would actually ask you?
Was more people, and I did this when I was getting into business, is I looked at the top producers and I sort of spent time with them. I need to work their jobs or I ask them a ton of questions. I almost wish more people would pat you on the shoulder and ask me, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? There's quite a few that do, but quite a few that don't. It's like free knowledge, free information. They don't need to buy me lunch. I don't need lunch. It's okay. And so I think people want to share. They want to give you tips and techniques and traits and how we do it, whether it's how to do some shortcuts on your email to be more productive, efficient, to, what the types of clients they're going after. I wish more people have that mindset to want to be better and want to get better and do better.
Awesome. Well, David, for people that want to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Movement Search and Delivery. You could find it there. You could find me on Facebook. You could find the firm. We're very, very movements all over. We do a very focused job of keeping the company branded and having we brag more about our culture than we do anything else, about the events and the fun stuff we're doing and the annual meetings, the incentives coming up, and just, we do a lot. So that's how they can find me. I'm pretty easy to find for sure. But Damon Bradley at movementsearch.com is the email address. David Bradley at movementsearch.com.
Awesome. And before I let you go, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Just anybody looking to get in this business, this is an amazing business. I go back to the age-old expression, it's a simple business, but it ain't easy. And it's a true statement. What I love about it is we are not calling on one vertical, one industry, one type of person. We have a very broad swath of what we can do. We can pivot and switch gears quickly. I think that's what we as movement try to do a lot of. So when there's a vertical or something's down, automotive's a little bit off right now. So we'll dovetail and be creative about how we go after tackle new business. You have the power of that within this business. Take advantage of that and know that you are in control of this thing and you can control the inputs and ultimately control your life, and which is pretty special.
I absolutely love that. Well, David, I just want to say thank you. I've seen you after hours at the bar, just in there, pouring into other recruiters. And I think some of those recruiters are even bigger billers than you. Just hey, here's exactly what we do. Here's how we have it broken down. Here's X, Y, Z. But also it's hard to stay consistent year after year after year with the kind of success that you've had. But you've structured your day. You've become accountable. You've become the standard bearer that your organization needed and needs as part of the team that you're with. So I absolutely love this, and I can't wait for this episode to go live. And for the recruiters out there, if you're part of a team, maybe you are the standard person that needs to be the standard bearer. Maybe you're the person that needs to be the one that lifts up the flag of the organization and said, hey, follow me. Let's go. So I want you to crush 2025. Let's go.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
It'll be fun. Keep crushing it, guys.